Hello, everybody, and welcome to my December live stream. I probably made a mistake waiting until this late in December because everybody's busy doing their Christmas shopping or wrapping presents or something. I don't know. Maybe we'll have a low turnout today. But that's okay. You can always catch up and watch this later. I try to do a live stream once a month, and sometimes it's just when I have time. So the subject today is going to be wild clay. Not just about wild clay, but I'm going to talk about the wild clay that I've collected this year, and specifically I'm going to show you some examples. So I've got a big show and tell spread out on the desk before me here that I'm going to be sharing with you, examples of clay, and then I also have a bunch of video and pictures loaded up to show you, so we can kind of get an idea of what to look for. So I think the hardest part for somebody that's just getting into wild clay is kind of learning what to look for, recognizing it in nature. And so what I hope to share with you is a lot of examples of what clay looks like in the wild, so that you can kind of get in your head the idea of what you're looking for when you're out there. And so hopefully this will help you. I know with me, when I was first looking for clay, I was walking right over clay all the time because I just didn't know what it looked like in the wild. Once you figure out what to look for, you'll start seeing it everywhere. So I've got a lot of different examples, a quite diverse collection of clay here. So you can get some examples of really different types of clay, and clay that's found in very different scenarios. So hopefully this will really help you get your head around it. So specifically, the subject is the 10 best wild clays that I collected this year. And I've collected clays from all over the country, different states and regions. And so hopefully I've got a good collection for you. I don't know what else I have to say. Oh, your questions, of course. So when you have questions about pottery related questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and I will try to answer them all, okay? So it's not just clay. Anything pottery related is a fair question, but what I'm going to be talking about and sharing with you specifically is about wild clay, okay? Let me get to the chat real quick and see how we're doing. Also, let me know if my audio is okay. All right, Petra, now she's over in Europe somewhere, I believe, and I'm using she because I really don't know, so I apologize if that's not it. Primary clays here are very plastic but full of stones, suited for making coarse pottery and less levigated, which they didn't. Meaning the ancient potters, I assume. Secondary clays are weak, will tolerate well firing. Is it so in Arizona too? Yeah, I think that's a fairly reasonable explanation. But not all primary clays that I use here require levigation to use, because I'm generally adding 20% temper to my clays anyways. A lot of those primary clays, I can just grind them up, taking those larger chunks of gravel or whatever that's in it, sand, grinding it down finer and letting that be at least the down payment on my temper, and then adding a little temper on top of that usually, or sometimes. But in some cases, yes, you might need to screen it out. There's also cases, Petra, where you can let nature kind of do your levigating for you. So although the ancient potters weren't doing levigation, they weren't doing it here where I live either. You might have a slope, right? And there's clay on this slope. And when water hits the slope, it runs down. And then down below, you find deposits of clay that have been naturally kind of purified. The gravel has already been sorted out, and you've got a finer clay down there. So you might look for those kind of situations as well. But yeah, I think that's fair. Let me see where I'm at here. It won't scroll for me. Noel is here from California. It's good to see you. Oh my, Dallas? Howdy. Good to see you. Chris in Kansas is here with another howdy. Mahil Vormatag, good to see you. My dude, hello dear. Noel with hands, let's see. Dawn Art, hi Andy, at what temperature should that smectite clay slip you sell online be fired? I don't know what the bottom end is, where it starts maturing, but I've never had a problem with that clay, getting out of the fire and not being hardened, because when I'm done, I wash it, I wipe it off with water or whatever, and I've never had problems with it coming off. Now I have had that problem with some of the smectites. So for example, there's one that a lot of replicators use called Cannonball White, which comes from southwestern Colorado, and it's a really good smectite, holds organic paint, but I find that if I don't fire over, I don't know, maybe 750 or something, that it will start coming off. So the stuff that I sell comes from the little Colorado River Valley in northern Arizona, and I've never had a problem with it coming off at low temperatures. But I mean, that's something to be aware of. I can't give you a specific number because I just haven't tested enough to know what that is. Assuming it's good down into the low 700 Celsius. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Audrey Finney, hi from Scotland. Hey, we got people here from all over the world today. Fergus, I'm digging that shirt too. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I like to have colorful shirts, especially for the live stream, because it's easy to get bored and I'm trying to hold your attention. Audio sounds good. Thank you. Alan Delay, audio's great. Good. Audio's good. Don Art. Yes, that shirt is it. Appalachian Outdoors. I recently surface fired some pots, but they don't ring when I hit them, but make a dull sound. Why do some ring and some don't? Chances are, Appalachian Outdoors, that those ones that are thudding are not fully fired. Now, if you really want to give them the test, put some water in it and let it sit overnight and see if the pot falls apart, because that's really the ultimate test of whether your pot has become ceramic or if it's still mud. But there's a good chance, if they're not ringing, that they didn't get fired hot enough. And, and it's not unusual in a large firing, if you've got a number of pieces, it doesn't have to be a large firing, but let's say you have 5 or 6 different pots in the same firing, that they may be fired in one side and not in the other, because there can be great differences in temperature in a firing like that, depending on airflow and the wind and the fuel, all kinds of things. So I would suspect that perhaps those that don't ring are not fired fully. Okay, since I've got through all the questions, we'll get right into the stuff here. Hit that like button if you can. That'll do me a favor for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you for that. Slideshow. Here we go. Let's see. All right, so this is my go-to clay. This is what I call Sonoyta Highway Red, or Old Sonoyta Highway Red. And here's some examples of here. I'll show you in a larger. I know I'm on a postage stamp right now. First of all, let's talk a little bit about the ethics of collecting clay. So where I'm collecting this is a roadside, a county roadside. So it's not like we're damaging anything that isn't already damaged. But what you want to be aware of, this is what I found. I went out there early this year and I found this, and I won't give the person's name, but he's a student of mine and he's a friend, and I don't want to out him or anything, but he left his tools. He accidentally left his tools, but he also left this big hole. So what I just want to tell you is, like, when you go out and dig wild clay, just always kind of try to put it back into a natural looking setting when you leave. You might dig a big chunk out of the ground like this person did here, but just throw the rocks back up in there, kind of smooth the dirt out, because if it looks like this, then we may come back next time and find like a sign up, like, no digging here, you know what I mean? Or they'll put a fence up and say, you're not allowed here or something. Just be aware that if we don't make a mess when we dig our clay, we're more likely to be allowed to continue digging clay. So we don't want to ruin it for ourselves or for anybody else. So this was, like I said, this was an accident. He left his tools. But always, when you're done digging clay, kind of move the dirt and rocks around and make it look like it's natural. Don't make it look ugly like this, because this is what'll make it so we can't dig clay anymore. So this is found on the side of the road. It's a red, like a primary clay. Like Petra was talking about in that first comment, if you scroll up in the chat. And it has a lot of grit in it because it's a primary clay. And you can see on the picture here, look at the rocks all over in there. It's very, very gritty. So what I do is when I grind it, I'll pull out large rocks. Rocks that are like golf ball size or larger, But rocks that are, like quarter and dime size, I will leave in it generally and just run through that corn grinder. The rocks that are here are not very hard. Like sometimes you get a piece of quartz or a piece of obsidian or something, and it'll just stop your corn grinder because it's really hard. It takes a lot of force to grind it. But these are real soft. They'll go right through that corn grinder like nothing. And so I just grind them up and turn them into, the temper that I'm going to add. So it works real good for me because it's not a lot of work. I don't have to go to a lot of labor to kind of purify it before I use it. I just grind it up, and then I mix in about a 15% temper on top of what's already in it. So it's got a good amount of temper when we use it. But it's a good clay. It's got a lot of building strength, and it's fairly plastic. It's good stuff. And let me change the camera here real quick so I can get a closer look at this stuff. It doesn't look very clay-like. It just looks like a chunk of dirt. But if you look at the ground out there, and that picture I was showing you, it has a good, let me go back to the slideshow. It has a good crackly texture to it. So you can see here where I'm digging it, you can see that crackly texture in the ground where it's kind of dried up and shrunk and cracked a little. And that's a good sign that there's clay there. So keep your eyes open for that. That was my first clue that it was clay. And I just took a bag of it home and tested it, and it turned out real good. So this is my usual go-to clay. I use this for probably most of the projects you've seen me build on this channel have been made out of this clay. This is my general good go-to clay. Now, another one I wanted to show you, and this one was in a video in, I think, April, or in the spring. And this is that green clay that I got down by the San Pedro River. And, it has that nice soapy, kind of waxy texture about it. Not to mention a green color, which is unusual. But those kind of angular chunks that's breaking into, that's a great indication that it's clay, as well as that texture. And this stuff, I didn't fire it right away. I didn't fire it until recently, and I've learned that it might even hold organic paint. So this is what it looks like. If I can get the camera to focus on it, you see how it has the way it breaks, kind of the planes it breaks into. That's real typical of clay that's been compressed in the ground. Okay, so I did a test firing. You might have seen this in my last video, but this is the stuff I'm trying to. Here, okay, you see how it dang, I can't get it right. You see how it held carbon in this area, and look at this is the green clay over here. We're going to talk about this green in a little bit. It's here today too, but this is that green clay from the San Pedro, and look how it grabbed that carbon. A lot of those smectites, the smectites that you want to use for organic paint, they have an affinity for carbon. That's why we use them with organic paint. Now, this wasn't painted with organic paint. This is just that carbon that's in the atmosphere when you're doing an outdoor firing, smoke and whatnot. And it grabs it, and it held onto it. It wouldn't let it go because it had that affinity for carbon. So this is a good indication, as well as the fact, I don't know if you can see it in here. Maybe you can. You see how it's kind of crackled? It's quite crackled, that yellow. And so the fact that it crackles a lot, that tells you it has a high shrinkage rate. And the fact that it has an affinity for carbon tells you that it's a good chance that's a smectite clay. So it might be interesting to do some organic paint on this stuff. Black on yellow might be real interesting. That's something like I said, I collected this in April, and I've just recently got around to firing it because I'm just constantly testing new clays. So I just never run out of things to test. And so sometimes I'm real busy making videos, teaching classes and workshops and whatnot, and things that I can put off that are taking time too, like testing clays, sometimes get put off for a long, long time. So that's the world I live in. So that's the San Pedro green. Now, I told you 10 clays. I actually have 11 today. This is the bonus one I threw in. This is that clay we found out in Montana when I was visiting my son in June. Miles City, Montana, and look at the quality of that. The same kind of angular chunks that I was just showing you from that San Pedro green, and that gray clay has it. And I believe that my friend Justin down in Montana has been using this stuff to making good pottery out of it. But I think, if I remember right, and he could correct me, I don't know if he's here, that I think there's a high shrinkage rate to it. So he's having trouble with it cracking and drying because of its high shrinkage rate. There's different ways to mitigate that. You just make sure it dries really slowly. You can add more temper, which will decrease the amount of shrinkage. You can mix it with other clays. So hopefully you can get that to work. But it's a beautiful, beautiful clay. In fact, what it looks like when it's in the bucket like this, in those chunks, it looks very much like Hopi clay. Some of those really nice clays that are up on the Colorado Plateau that we don't really get down here in Tucson, that's what it looks like. It's a really fine, fine Colorado Plateau clays. And this comes from up near Miles City, Montana, so far, far from the Colorado Plateau. No questions yet? Chat looks good. Everybody doing okay? Hold on a second. Okay. I'm missing some of the chat, so I'm gonna go back in here. Audio's good. Hey Andy, this is a Puck Kingery. It's kind of cold here on the California Central Coast. Yeah, you guys on the South California Central Coast are it doesn't get that cold there, right? I mean, does it ever freeze on the California Central Coast? I'm doubting it does. I'm wondering if I can do a firing when it's cool, 45 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Will that temp cause more thermal shock at the end of the firing? Yeah, no, I fire in cold weather all the time. here, that kind of cold weather here in Tucson. It's exactly like 40s and 50s a lot of times here in Tucson in the winter. And I don't have a lot of problems. You can get thermal shock at the end, but what you want to do is if you just use some cover sherds, just some broken bits of pot to kind of cover the pot, and then let it just sit there and cool. Don't be in a hurry to pull it out. Let it just sit there and cool for a while before you pull the pot out. You'll be fine. I know people, I have students who are up in like, Alberta, Canada, and Minnesota, and really cold places that fire in the wintertime, Montana. So if they can do it, and people that are firing in the snow, then certainly you can fire in the winter on the California coast. Do you make and sell earthen cookware? I don't generally make cookware, although I have made cookware in the past. So I would send you to my website where I do sell pottery, but there's no cookware there, or nothing that was made specifically for cooking. JD Stewart, hi Andy, good to see you. Hey, thanks for showing up, Jerry. Madude, I don't really have a question. I could get answered on stream, but thank you for inspiring me. I made like $1,000 pounds, euros. Sorry, I'm looking. I think it's a euro. I made like 1,000, whatever. He made a lot of money this year from pottery, all pit fired, and some raku too. Good for you. That's awesome. Yes, the shirt is great. Thank you, my dude. Moy J. Brown. Hi, Andy. Do you plan on doing more workshops? Okay, so I have a workshop in the spring. It's the end of March, 1st of April, and it's full. And here's my problem with workshops. I like doing workshops; they're fun, but it really puts me behind on my YouTube schedule. And so the question is, like when I did this year, 2023, I did 2 workshops in the spring and 2 workshops in the fall, and so I spent like a month and a half trying to do workshops, teach workshops, and keep my video schedule going, which is just madness. And then like another month afterward trying to get caught up. And then I get all caught up and I go through the summer, and then the fall comes and I got to do it again. Like a month just trying to do both, and then a month trying to get caught up because I'm behind. I mean, I don't know. Like, I make money from the workshops, and that's good. I mean, I need money, right? But at the same time, like, I really hate that kind of like being behind and kind of being anxious about being behind and try to keep up with a schedule while, I don't know. I just, there's a lot of anxiety and stress involved in that. And I'm kind of, what I'd like to do is teach 1 workshop in the spring and 1 workshop in the fall instead of 2. But then that cuts down my income. So I don't know. I'm probably bothering you with my problems, but the question was if I'm going to teach more workshops in the spring. And I probably should schedule a 2nd workshop in the spring, but I'm not committed to doing it yet. So it may wait until fall of 2024 before I schedule another one. I just don't know. I do teach on Zoom every Wednesday, though. I mean, join my Zoom group. That's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of really smart people in there as well that you can learn from. A lot of really good potters. So that's another option if you're interested in learning. Let me see if I can get back to these texts here. Okay, there it is. Texas, living in France. Love that shirt. Hit the like button. Thank you, Googtown. Lisa Walker, what is the one single best thing you can do to make the wild clay more plastic? Oh, that's tough. Thing you could do to make wild clay more plastic probably would be like levigate it, like actually purify all the junk out of it. Every time you've got a bit of silt or sand or anything in it, you're taking away some of that plasticity. Then again, you have to add temper anyway. So, but if you do a clay that isn't very plastic, I think you can purify it, or you can mix it with another clay. That's about it. There's little things you can do like letting it age and stuff, but those changes are pretty minuscule. You're looking at big changes, levigation, and mixing it with a better clay, a sticky clay. Find something else. If it's lacking in plasticity, you still can't use it. Find a better clay. Is there a way to tell before firing it what color a clay will develop when fired? Yeah, I've done videos about this. There's some generalizations. A yellow clay almost always fires red. Green clay usually fires kind of yellow or orange. White clay almost always fires white. But like a lot of those, like gray and brown, I mean, you never know until you fire them, you know, because there's other minerals or organic elements that are kind of hiding what it is. Just wondering, you recently mentioned that you might remake your online classes. Do you have ideas when you might have those available to purchase? Okay, Dawn Art, if you buy one of those classes now, you get access to it forever, for eternity. You know, as long as the website's online. And someday I'm going to be dead, and who's going to maintain my website? But that's not what I mean. You know, you'll get access to that class forever. So you can buy it any time. I am planning on starting filming those probably this month or next. So, and that's another thing. That's where those workshops get in the way of those other projects I need to do. They'll probably, it's not all four of them. It's not all four that I'm worried about. Specifically, I'm worried about that coil and scrape class. It was the first one I made, and the information is good, but the filming, I filmed it on like a GoPro camera. It's really, the film is not so good. It's not well edited. I've grown a lot as a videographer and a video editor since then. So that's the main thing. I think the knowledge is still good. So if you get in there and get that class, it'll be up in the next 2 months, let's say, no later than, say, the end of February, right? So that's a good thing, and you can wait till it comes out, and I'll let you know if you want to. But I'm saying if you bought it today, you'd still have access, 2 years down the road to the new class as well. So it's up to you. Petra, I'm Hungarian. Man, see, Petra, I never knew, because Petra, just the name, maybe it's the A ending, sounds female to me, so I apologize, but I'm actually a Hungarian man, now active in Greece. I'm just used to using this random female pseudo, so it's all right. I'm not offended. You can keep calling me Petra. Ren Pixie, I made it. Better late than never. I wouldn't be one of my live streams if you weren't here, Ren Pixie. Hello from Laguna Pueblo, Concerned Pueblo Navajo man. Hey, good to see you. I was in Laguna Pueblo back in October. I drove around, didn't see any like pottery signs or anything, so I left, but we had a nice visit to Acoma, did the tour of the whole Pueblo. What is smectite clay, and what do I look for to find it? So smectite clay is made from decomposed volcanic ash, and it specifically has, like I talked about earlier, has this affinity for carbon. So it's really terrible. Well, I mean, it has its value. Like the person that was asking about making clay more plastic. Smectite clays generally have a lot of plasticity, but a high shrinkage rate. So you wouldn't want to build a pot out of them because it just cracked to pieces when it dried. But you can add it to, if you have a clay that you like, but it has poor plasticity, you can add smectite in and increase the plasticity of it. So it's good for that. But the reason I use it is that affinity for carbon. You can use it to paint organic paint on a pot, and that will turn into black designs after the firing if it's fired correctly. So that's one of the things it's good for. So here in the Southwest, they use the smectite clays for a slip. They just they'll build the pot out of something else. Then they'll just paint on a thin coat of that smectite, and then they'll paint organic paint on it and make designs. That's what it is. Like I said, it's made from volcanic ash. It has a high shrinkage rate and an affinity for carbon. So that's a good round, kind of easy way to think of it. Moy Brown, hi from Golden Valley, Arizona. I have no idea where Golden Valley, Arizona is. Sweet Thunder, Maine here. Good to see you. When firing, do you strictly use pit firing or do you use a kiln? I've never used a proper kiln, although I have made a primitive kiln, kind of a little adobe or brick, like updraft kiln, kind of convection kiln. I've done that before, but generally I just fire out in the open. Goontown, is there a good clay to be found in a Swiss forest? I have no idea. I've never been to Switzerland. Day Dallas, there's good clay found everywhere, Goontown. You just have to know what to look for, that's for sure. He has a shoe pot for sale on his website. Yeah, that's true, Noel. I do have that shoe pot for sale, and that is a culinary pot, so I guess I was wrong about that. Libnipper, can you send me the link of the online store, please? Okay, Libnipper, here we go. Are you ready for this? I'm looking for it. It's here somewhere. Here it is. That's my website right there, ancientpottery.how. I looked into buying .com recently, and I forget what they wanted. It was ridiculous. It was like, $7,000 or something. I'm like, man, do you know how many pots and how many classes I'd have to sell? to make it worth paying like $7,000 to get the .com instead of .how? Totally not worth it. Anyway, that's the address. I'm still looking for the, for some reason the chat on my, what do you call it? OBS Studio is frozen, which is terrible. It's never happened to me before. So I'm switching back and forth between OBS Studio and Safari, my YouTube Studio, to read the chats. I apologize. It makes it a little more cumbersome. Where was I? Link to the store. Just YouTube videos of your workshops. Just do YouTube videos of your workshop. Well, you know, when I first started doing YouTube, I would make a video because I was wanting to make a video every week, and it's hard. And especially if you're teaching a workshop, that's a whole week right there. So I did a couple of videos of my workshops. They never got very many views. So if you go back into the older videos, you'll find a couple I made of workshops. I stopped making them because they just were never very well received. So you could have somebody come and let them have the workshop for free if they do the videotaping. Like I said, I've done it. I've made it. It's not very, for some reason they're not very entertaining. Or maybe I just didn't approach them right. I don't know. Okay, Puck Kingery. My second question relates to this year's Pottery Challenge, specifically the cocoa jars. When will you be doing this? I'm looking forward to doing this one in particular. What are the dimensions? The dimensions are in that video. So if you go back and look at that, you know, Pottery of the Colorado Plateau video, it's about 3 or 4 videos back. I put the dimensions on the screen. So go back and look at that because I don't know them off the top of my head. They're fairly large though. They're like 12 inches tall and like 4 or 5 inches in diameter, if I remember right. But I'd have to look it up to tell you. So yeah, and I'm going to do that soon, probably January, maybe February at the latest. So the cocoa jar is coming up. Yeah. I'll tell you about the Ancient Pottery Challenge since we're talking about it. I started the Ancient Pottery Challenge already. I was making that Pinto polychrome bowl. Got to be 15 inches, right? So it's big. It's sitting right here. I just can't show you because it's sitting on its face and it's drying. And I've been working on it all this week. So I started probably Monday, right? And I built it and I let it dry. Because it's big, you got to handle it real gently. And I slipped it and everything was coming along fabulously. It was sitting right here on my workbench, right before the live stream. And so to get ready for the live stream, I wanted to move it. So it had been sitting upright. I flipped it over upside down so it could dry on the bottom. And I set it over there and it was getting a kind of like a crust of salts on the outside because the clay I used has a little salt in it. And I had a bandana and I was wiping the salts off and I was probably putting too much pressure on it and I was rubbing kind of vigorously to kind of get that scum off of there, and it cracked. It's got a big old crack now, so I've got to start all over on that. So that's put me behind on the Ancient Pottery Challenge. That's the story going on right now. I'm looking at it. It's right there. It's got a big old crack and it's horrible. So I got to start over. Fun. Let's see. Where was I at now? It does freeze here and snowed on the beach last year. No kidding, huh? That is crazy. I didn't know it snowed anywhere south of like San Francisco. I didn't know it froze anywhere south of San Francisco along the coast. So surprising. Mark Gibson, Southwest Pottery. Hey guy, it's good to see you. Mark's here. We make it when we can. It's good to see you. Go check out their channel if you want. They've got some really good videos about primitive pottery. Concerned Pueblo Navajo person. Next time you are in the area here, Laguna Pueblo, I'll show you my area to get clay colors. Myron, take care. Yeah, thank you. I'd appreciate that. That'd be a lot of fun. I drove around the Pueblo looking to see if there was any sign up like, pottery for sale or something so I could talk to a potter, but I never saw anything, so I just went on. But over at Acoma, I was at their visitor center and there was a bunch of potters out there that I got to talk to. So that was nice. Greg Garcia, you're the man. Thank you. Moe Brown outside of Kingman, right on. Let's see. Always about money to them. Between Laughlin and Kingman. Hello from Phoenix. Tonto Basin has clay. You just got to research. Oh yeah, there's a lot of clay in the Tonto Basin. I don't know if that's lacustrine layers or something, but there's a lot of layers of clay material in the Tonto Basin. I've been over there. It's just a long way from me. It's probably 4 hours to the Tonto Basin from here. So I don't get there very often. But yeah, there's a lot of clay. Do you know any clay types in mid-Europe by any chance? And is it possible to make something similar to Native American pottery out of materials found here? Absolutely. There's a guy named Stephen. I can't think of his last name now. He's on Instagram, and he's in France, and he's doing some amazing like Native American style pottery with native found materials in Europe. So absolutely. I don't know any clays in Europe that I can direct you to whatsoever. I've never been across the Atlantic, but yeah, you can make that kind of pottery in Europe with the materials there. He was having trouble, this guy named Steven, he was having trouble finding red clay. He had lots of brown clays though. But you know, keep experimenting, there's stuff. But yeah, I think if you wanted to find him, you'd go to Instagram, and if you just looked at the hashtag like primitive pottery or something, I think you'd find him. I can't think of his name right now, but real decent potter, making good progress over there. Hello from Germany, Dr. Rattenkaiser. Rockfall. Hello, Andy. We met at the pottery demo at Steam Pump Ranch. The demo was very informative and met a wonderful group of people. If you plan on doing it again next year, I recommend your viewers attend. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I've been doing that every year for, I don't know, 5 years or so. So you do plan on coming out if you're in the area. I live in Palm Springs, and it can drop below 30 at times, especially in the last 3 years. Angela said, sorry for my bowl. Yeah, one of those things, you know, one of those things about the crack, I'm not so concerned about starting over the bowl, but what really irritates me the most is it sets off my YouTube schedule. So that was my project. That was going to be the video for 2 weeks from Wednesday. And now I got to start over. I don't know if I'm going to have it ready by 2 weeks from Wednesday. Plus the video edited and all that. So the biggest problem is my video schedule. Breaking pottery is part of the process. Sometimes you just break pottery, and I'm okay with that. The video schedule is now thrown off. Yeah, Chris in Kansas had a commercial pop up in the middle of the live stream. So this is a new, yeah, it's Walford. See, Carol's got it. Steve Walford, you're right. That's the guy in France who's making North American style primitive pottery and doing good. So look him up if you're interested. Yeah, and Chris in Kansas, there's a new thing on YouTube. So when I was setting up this live stream, it was like, do you want us to automatically insert the mid-roll ads, or do you want to pick the timing for the mid-roll ads? I didn't see a third option for don't put mid-roll ads in. So I chose let them choose when to put them in. But I think that's really weird to put mid-roll ads in a live stream. I agree. I don't know what to say. But I think maybe I don't understand it because it's new. It's some kind of new feature on YouTube. Maybe I can opt out of mid-roll ads on live streams. But I didn't see that option when I was selecting it, which is weird. Okay, let me go back to my my presentation. I'm sorry if I took too long on that. So we looked at the Sonoida clay. We looked at the okay. So this is the stuff. This is the stuff I made my big pot out of that cracked. Here's an example. I made this. This is what we did. So every month in the Ancient Potters Club, we have a different project. And December, we're making these little round bottom mugs. This is the mug I made, and I just slipped it last Wednesday. And then I will finish it up and paint it this Wednesday because that last class, that fourth class in December, that's that week between Christmas and New Year's. I don't think very many people are going to show up anyway. But so this was made with this clay here that you're looking at on the screen. It's really good clay. So remember I showed you the Sonoida clay, and I said, this is my go-to clay. That was this, there's this reddish brown stuff, remember? So that's mostly what I use. This is like my number 2 clay. And this, I really like this stuff. It's got good qualities. It's what I made that big Pinto polychrome bowl with that cracked today. So if you look at it close, that's what this picture was taken of. There's tiny little like gray or brown dots in the clay, little specks. I'd love to look at it under a microscope and see if those are little fossils or something. But that's how when I'm out there, I can recognize this clay, because you can always, if you look at it up close, you can see those little specks. I don't know if this is close enough for you to see it, but they're always in it. Anyways, it's really good clay. It's got good qualities. And here's another picture of the stuff. So, got a nice bowl of it here. You can see there. It's got a little bit of a yellowish color, and it when it's fired, if it's fired in oxidation, it's kind of a buff color, a little bit yellowy. And then if it's reduced, though, it makes a nice gray, which is just about what you're looking for a lot of those White Mountain redwares. So this isn't found far from like Bailey Ruin or Pinedale up there, where there's a lot of big like ruins from the 1300s, 1200s, 1300s up there in the Mogollon Rim. So it's really a good clay for making replicas of that kind of pottery, because it's found right in that area and it matches, the look and the color of what they were using up there. So another really good clay. I got a bucket of that this summer when I was up there. And that's, like I said, my second go-to clay. And since I'm working on right now a lot of Cibola whitewares, this is the stuff that I'm using. So I've got a big bucket of this that I'm about to start processing. I'm still using the last batch, processing the new batch to get rolling on that. That's what I'll use for my Cibola cocoa, cylinder. That's what I use for my little mug that I showed you too. All right. That's that. I call it Mogollon Dream Clay sometimes, because it's right on the rim. It's real close to the Mogollon Rim, and it's just a dream to work with. So this is interesting. This is a little spot I know of. It's near, if you look on a map, there's a place called Klondike, Arizona. It's here in southeast Arizona, somewhere between like Safford and Tucson, or maybe like between Wilcox and Globe. It's the middle of nowhere. You got to drive like an hour down a dirt road to get here, and then walk, a half mile or something off the road too. And this is weird stuff because it barely looks like clay at all. Oh, let me change the camera here so I can show you that. I mean, if you saw this, you probably wouldn't even think it was clay. It's kind of chalky, and it's a little bit pink in color. Very strange stuff. But if you look at it, I don't have a good picture of it here to show you what I'm talking about. But it's up in this, where those like vertical rock slabs are. It's way up in that little hole there. And when you get up there, there's this kind of pinkish, chalky stuff. But sometimes, when it gets damp, you'll get those crackled kind of texture on it. And that was my clue. So, there's different definitions for clay. Some people say it's sediment with a particle size smaller than whatever. Some people define it using those, because clay isn't just particle size, it's also particle shape, right? They're flat platelets, and they kind of slide by each other. That's how you get that plasticity out of it that you don't get with regular dirt. But one of the things, in my opinion, that makes clay is that magical thing that it does. When you get it hot, it becomes hard. It becomes permanent, right? It changes what it is when you get it hot. It becomes, ceramic. It becomes a permanent shape. And so this does that. So I don't know if it's clay. Like I said, it's strange. But it does harden in the fire to become permanent. You can't scrub it off. You can't, it's solid. So in that way, it is clay. So what I do with this is I levigate it. And then once it's all purified, I get all the grit out of it. I use it for a slip, kind of like I would with smectite. But I don't think it's smectite clay. I could be wrong. I'm not a geologist. But if I use it like smectite and apply it to the outside of a pot, I can paint with organic paint, and it'll hold those black designs. So that's the stuff. I made a video about this in the spring also, maybe like March or April. After the live stream's over, I'll go back and add links to all the videos I talk about in the doobly-doo, but I didn't do it beforehand. So I'll add it later in case you're interested in those videos and can't find them. But I did hike out there in like March or April and took these pictures. I got a couple of bags of this stuff, and it's interesting. It's really weird stuff. This is a good example. The reason I put this in here was I wanted to show you that not all things that I call clay might not even be clay, right? But as long as they do the things we expect clay to do, right? I can apply it as a slip and it'll harden in the fire. That's all that I need. So, kind of have an open mind about it and try different things, because you might be surprised. Okay, so the next clay I'm going to talk about is that recapture green. So it comes up by recapture reservoir up by Blanding. So when I was up at the Kiln conference, I collected some of this, and I took some other people, I guided some people out to collect this. This is my adopted sister, Susan Ward. She goes to the Kiln conference, and she's not really related, but she has the last name of Ward, so she said, "Can I be your sister?" So she's my adopted sister. but she's collecting some of this green, and it's a funny stuff. It's kind of it's a dark green, but it's definitely green. It's almost like an army green, you know, like that olive drab or something that they used to make fatigues. And that's how it comes out of the ground, kind of crumbly, but it's got those same angular chunks that we were talking about. And it's kind of hard and flinty, like clay that's been compressed in the ground. And it's good. I've been told it's good for building pots out of too, but I've never built anything out of it. I've only used it as a slip. But this is the stuff. It's this color right here. So you can see it's a nice kind of orangey yellow color. Very nice color. And so that's why I use it for a slip. And I wouldn't want to use it for a body clay because it's so far from my home. I'd use it all up and then I'd want to go back and get more in it. Gosh, it's got to be a 8 or 10 hour drive up there. So for a slip, I can make it last forever. But that's another really good one. And again, right on the side of the road. Let's see, all these next to the road that I've gotten today. So we've talked about the Sonoyta Highway Red. That's right next to the road. This stuff I had to hike in for. That's the Sonoyta stuff. This Mogollon Dream Clay, it's 100 yards from the road. You got to hike a little ways. This Klondike stuff, I got to hike like a half a mile, maybe a mile. This Blanding, that Recapture Green, that's right next to the road. The road is a great place to look for clay because when you're looking for clay, you don't want it to just be good clay, right? Makes good pottery. But you want it to be convenient. Like I said with the red clay, like it's convenient because I don't have to process it a lot. I can just grind it up and use it, right? That makes it easier to use. The same way with like if I've got to hike 2 miles for it, that makes the clay a lot less convenient. So another clay might be better, even though it might be more work. So next to the road is good. And that's how I found this. I was just driving down the road and I saw this layer, hiked up there, and I looked at it. It looked like clay. It had those like that right texture to it. So that's a great way to find it. Let me go back to the chat and see if I missed anything here, and then we'll go. I've still got 4 more clays to cover, so we'll probably go a little late. If you have to bail, that's okay. Like I said, this will be online to watch anytime. Okay, looking for the funnel beaker culture. Greetings from Slovenia, I think. Good to see you here. Did you ever experiment with adding certain materials into the clay body and not the paint, like salt, ash, hematite? And if so, did you get any results that you're satisfied with? No, because it would take a lot of material. So if I was adding, let's say, hematite to my clay to make it red, I would have to add a lot of hematite to my clay to make it red. You know, I use a lot more body clay than I use paint or slip. And since I'm collecting in nature and processing my own, say, hematite, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. Most of that hematite isn't being seen because it's down inside the walls of the pot. It's much more efficient if you're collecting it and processing it by hand to paint it on the outside than to put it in the clay. Now, if you were buying like, what do they call those? Like mason stains, right? If you're buying mason stains to color your clay, sure, you can buy a 40-pound bag of this stuff and you can just knead it into your clay. Boom, done. That makes sense to me. But if you're using wild materials and you're processing it all by hand, I don't think that makes any sense because, like I said, 99% of that hematite or whatever you're adding is just going down into the body and you're not even getting any benefit from it. That's to me it doesn't make sense. I don't think the ancients ever did it either. Okay, excited for the Kiln Conference next year, just waiting for the website to be updated and my grandma can make reservation. Yeah, I don't think they have a date yet, Day Dallas, but they do have a location. It's going to be in Cortez, Colorado. So I also am waiting to find out when that is. But it'll probably be end of September, 1st of October. That's when it usually is up in that country because that's when they have good weather for it. And it will be in Cortez, Colorado at a place called Crow Canyon. I think it's called like Archaeological Center or something. Gopher says hi. Petra, does that white clay from the nice mug contain lime in it, or is it kind of kaolinite, which would sustain really strong fires? Yeah, I don't know. It could have some calcium in it or something. So this is slipped. You're talking about this mug here. I made it with this material, But then I slipped it with my white clay from up on the Mogollon Rim, which is not here today. And that white clay might have some calcium in it or something. I've never had it tested, but that is, yeah, I don't know what it is. It could be kaolin. It could have a bunch of lime in it. I just don't know. But that stuff stays white in an oxidation fire, which is a rare thing. I'm just reading through the comments. Give me a second. How to make a sculpture out of clay. How to make a sculpture out of clay? Well, you just make a sculpture, I guess. I'm not a sculpture person. I just found a similar weird white clay just at the interface between gneiss and limestone layers. Don't know from which it derives. Weird but nice clay. Cool. Yeah, you never know. Is it worth looking for clay up in the mountains? Where I live, the lowlands are pretty all private property and pretty populated, but the mountains, the Cascades specifically, the mountains are public land. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It depends on the mountains, right? Like some mountains have a lot of clay in them because they're made out of sedimentary materials. The Cascades are kind of famous for being volcanic, so I would think probably not a lot of clay in the Cascades. But roadsides, I mean, roadsides are good, and roadsides are even down there, even where it's all private land. You know, you could drive around in, King County, Washington, and it's all like shopping centers and housing developments and stuff. But the roadsides are there. You can go poke around the roadsides. That's a good way to find, I mean, that's public land that's everywhere. So that's what I would do. Oh, let me get back to my slideshow. Where are we at? We were looking at that green clay from recapture. All right. This is that stuff up by Fence Lake here. So drove up after the kiln conference. I drove down to New Mexico, south of Zuni. There's a lot of really beautiful but remote country, like south of Zuni, between Zuni and, I don't know, what's that town down there, Camado, or like Springerville, Arizona. There's just a big empty space where there's lots of Bureau of Land Management, New Mexico state land, and then across the border, because the Arizona state line's right there, there's also Arizona state land, and just a lot of public land out there, and open country and dirt roads and stuff, and this yellow clay. So there's a slope out there, right on the roads, again, not on the roadside, county road, so it's all available, and even the land beyond, it's mostly BLM anyway, but the road had cut through, you could see all the layers of clay, and there was a bunch of yellow clay. It wasn't all yellow clay. There was some gray, some other colors, and there was some stuff that was sandstone, but there was a lot of yellow clay. And so what I did is I just picked through it. I just picked out the yellow parts, like this part looks yellower than that, and I literally just kind of cherry picked. You can see how there's gray in there, and there's kind of some little more greenish looking material.
Pretty darn yellow stuff.
And so when I was going through it, I just tried to get the yellowish material. And that worked pretty good.
Sorry.
And I stopped 3 different places. One low on the hill, one up towards the top, and one in the middle, and got different kinds. And they were all kind of different shades of yellow and stuff. But I'll show you in a minute. They all fired pretty much the same shade of orange. So let me show you. So this is my test bowl. And these, from here to here, these are all the 3 different, can you see the different, they're like slightly different shades. Those are all the 3 different clays I collected up on that hill in New Mexico. And they're pretty close. They're all pretty close to the same shade of orange. So this is it after I've processed it. This has been levigated to get all the junk out of it. And you can see it's got a nice yellow color. And it works pretty good for a slip. Now, I wouldn't use it for body clay. For one thing, like I said, it's far from my home. Use it for a slip, it'll last forever. If you look at the prehistoric stuff that was made in this area, they were using like a gray body clay, something like this, and they were slipping it with that yellow. So that's what I'm going to do with it. But good clay and a lot of fun exploring that area because, like I said, that road had all these different layers. And so I was there for, I don't know, a couple of hours, but you could spend all day. You could spend a whole weekend just exploring that area and trying every little layer and, kneading it up in your hand and seeing the quality of it, or, you know what I mean? It's a lot of stuff. It's a really cool area. So that's a neat area to explore if you ever get up there.
It's right under it in some cases.
Fence Lake, New Mexico, next to it, where that's at. And now this is where this is my my smectite that I sell on my website. This is the stuff that holds organic paint really well. So I'll show you what it looks like here. If I can get it to focus. It's a little bit, it's kind of flaky. You see how it's kind of flat, flaky chunks. It's got a neat texture to it. And that's one of the textures. I've got 2 different samples here today that I'll talk about that have those kind of flat layers that clay sometimes does. That's one of the things you can look for when you're out looking for clay, is those flat layers like that. So you can see here I am going out to dig it, and this is on the side of a road. So again, real convenient. You know, you're not trespassing or anything. It's just roadside. And you got to pull off this overburden, which is all kind of cruddy stuff. And once you get down in there, look at this. Look at this. Look how it does that flaky thing.
See that?
Look at that. Isn't that crazy? It's all laid in there flat. You know, like look up here. It's doing the same thing. You see it? Just little platelets. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, that's the smectite that I use for organic paint. It works really good. So that's another great example of a different kind of clay, again, found on the roadside. Now let me show you. This is what we did for my workshop, my pottery workshop in the fall. This was just in October. We go out to the Wilcox Playa. So in the southwest of Playa is a dry lake bed, and we just dig a hole in the bottom of the old lake bed, and you got to go down about a foot or 16 inches, 18 inches, and then it turns into this green, just beautiful, really plastic clay. So there's the cruddy stuff on top.
It gets firm when you get to the clay, isn't
Digging
that
it
funny?
out there.
Yeah.
Feel it. Oh, right there, I see it.
You'll see the green stuff start coming up, see? Look how nice that is, that green chunk she's got there. That's just solid, pure clay. And it's already wet because it's down in that under the lake bed. You can just squish it up and make coils out of it or whatever. It's really nice. The trouble is it's real salty. You got to try to wash the salt out of it before you use it. But it is a beautiful clay. And like a lot of green clays, it fires kind of a yellowy color, which is pretty typical of green clays. Now here, let me show you the next one I have is this is the stuff from Blanding. And so I was shown this. And I was told it was white clay, but it kind of looks whitish. You ever get, like, let's say you pick up not just clay, but you could even like a rock. Like you pick up a rock in nature and you bring it home, and you'd see like, wow, I swore this rock was white when I picked it up, but now it looks brown, or you know what I mean? Like the colors around something affect how your mind interprets the color of the thing. So this looked really white, and then I got it home, and I swear it looks kind of brown now. It's light colored, I guess, but it's not as white as it is in those pictures even, to me. It's weird. But again, it lays in those flat layers, like the smectite did that I was showing you. So let me show you. This one doesn't show it as much. Look at this one. You can kind of see that they're like little flat plates of clay. Interesting stuff. And so there it is, all dug out and bagged up. Funny stuff, and I haven't tested it yet, but I've been wanting to because they said it was a good white clay, and like somebody asked, can you know what a clay is going to fire before you fire it? And like sometimes, like with a white clay, it might have some iron in it, so it might oxidize to kind of a yellow or a pink color, but it's always going to be a light color. That's showing you what it is, right? A yellow clay is almost always going to fire red. But sometimes when they're brown, you just don't know because the stuff that's making it brown might burn out or oxidize or something in the fire. So you just don't know. I've seen black clays, just as black as can be, that fire beautiful white. So with white clays, you never know. So I'm anxious to try it. This also comes from up by Blanding, Utah. So that's that. Where are we at here? 2:24. We might finish on time. I don't know. Depends on how many questions we have. Let me go back to the chat real quick. The one about the clay in the Cascades, we did that. How much do you pay for a kiln? I don't know. I've never bought a kiln in my life. Where are you living? Tucson, Arizona. How can you extract clay from sandy, leafy, and rocky? Levigation. You got to mix it up in water. And let me change this scene here. mix it up in water and let the larger particles settle out and pour off the pure clay. How can you make a vase out of clay? Use coils to build it up. Travis Turner, greetings from Paraguay. Looking to get into primitive pottery and found your channel, which has all the answers to all my questions so far. Excellent work. Thank you, Travis. There's some amazing things going on with primitive pottery in South America. There's a woman whose name escapes me now. I wonder if I can look her up real fast. Maybe I can. Give me a second. Is it Karina? I want to say Karina Garrett. I could be missing it. And she's in Argentina, like northwest Argentina, and she does some amazing stuff. And she teaches workshops too. Give me a second. I'm working on it. She posted on my group recently. I have a Facebook group called Primitive Pottery if anybody's interested. Karina Garrett, Karina Garrett. And there's a guy in Chile also who does really nice primitive pottery. So, man, I would love to visit South America and just visit some of these primitive potters and like share ideas and learn how they fire. Maybe show them how I fire or something. That would be so awesome. And I wanted to do that this year, in 2024, but I just don't think it's going to be in the cards. I've got a trip to Mexico planned for next month, which is a big deal. I'm going to make a video down there, so that'll be good. But I don't think I'm going to be able to travel to South America this year. Maybe later in the year, if I can, in the fall. It depends on how my channel's doing. I mean, I've got 130,000 subscribers, but it's just, at this point, it's just getting to the point where I can support myself with it, believe it or not. So buying international travel is kind of a lot. So, and I've got dental work to get done this year as well. You know how that is. So I don't think it's going to happen, but man, there's some really good stuff going on in South America. So if I was in Paraguay, I'd be looking those people up. Waro, so dissolve your clay in water and run the, okay, he's just answering somebody else's question. But every one I make it comes out of the bucket while taking out the water from it. I don't know what to tell you. You can pour the water out, so somebody's trying to help him. Can you watch a tutorial that he made how you get the clay out? Okay, I'm gonna go back to the presentation then. What do we got? 12:27. I'll be a couple minutes late, but I'm at the very end, so we're wrapping it up now. Okay, so next clay on my list, the last clay I have here actually, number 11, believe it or not. So all of these clays, most of them have come from the side of the road. Most of them have been like a sedimentary deposit that was laid down centuries ago, right? Most of these clays come from way back in ancient time, but not always. Clay doesn't have to be super ancient. Sometimes it can be deposited 2 months ago. In this case, this is clay that was by an irrigation ditch. And during the summer, when the irrigation ditch flooded from the river, the water coming in off the Gila River, and it flooded, and when the water left, it left this layer of clay all along the banks and in the bottom of the ditch. Now, I haven't tested the clay yet, so I don't know how good it is, but it looks real good. It has a good texture to it, and you could see how it was all crackled around it in that picture. So, I mean, it was clay. It was pure clay that had been laid down from the Gila River. And that, in a lot of cases, is what the ancient potters could very well have been using. They were living along these rivers. They were out there farming in the rivers. They were always out there. They knew where the deposits were and when the deposits were. And they certainly had irrigation ditches and all that. So they may very well have been using exactly that kind of material that had just washed in on last year's floods. So last week before last now, it all gets a blur. I drove out to the Gila River Valley, and my wife and I spent the whole day just traveling along the north side of the Gila River Valley looking for clays. We're specifically looking for brown alluvial clays. So I found a bunch of clays. I ended up with 6 different samples of clay from out there. And that is my video on Wednesday, coming out this Wednesday, is about our trip down there and all the clays I found. So if you want, check that out on Wednesday. That's going to be, I think, a really good video and a lot of fun, kind of exploring rural areas looking for clay. But that's what this is. This is just on the side of the irrigation ditch. Let me show you the other picture I have of it here. Oh, it's a video. You see that irrigation ditch? And look at the crackled clay on either side. It just laid in there from when it flooded in the summer. All the way down is those crackles. So that I just picked it up and stuffed it in a bag. The problem with that kind of clay is that if I like it, it may not be the same next year, because every flood may bring in slightly different sediments, slightly different material. So if you like it, get a truckload of it when you can, I suppose. But that's another place, right? Like this area was where that was mostly private land around there. It was all private farmland. But I didn't have to go on anybody's private property, or maybe that ditch was owned by somebody, but nobody's going to care if you take a little bit of clay off the side of an irrigation ditch, right? There's a lot of places like that, alleys and drainage ditches and roadsides that maybe somebody owns them, but generally nobody cares if you take dirt from them. So people say, oh, I live in an area where it's all private land, but there's a lot of opportunities to find clay in those places. Now, granted, not everybody lives in an area like I live where it's desert and you can see the dirt there, whereas if that was in, say, Western Washington or Western Oregon, right, it'd be all covered in grass and plants and leaves and stuff. But you can dig down. You can dig down and sample the soil down under there. So don't give up hope. You got to learn how to work it in your area. I think that's the key. Has a miner ever brought you fault gauge from down in the hard rock mines to test as clay? No, I've never dealt with anything down deep. Please make videos of how you process all the best types of clay you collected. Tabuhu. Yeah, I have some. I have some videos about processing. I have quite a few videos about processing clay. And I also have a few about testing clay, which is the next one. So I went out 2 weeks ago and collected all this. I'm going to make a future video about how to test it. So I've got 6 bags of it sitting over here. And now I'm going to go through and I'm going to test each one of those bags and figure out which one of those clays is the best for making pottery with. Because all I got was a Ziploc bag of it. Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to get a bucket of it. And then I can really start building stuff out of it. So, yeah, I do have some videos and I'm going to make some more. So keep your eyes out for those. I already read that. My best clay so far was mud puddle clay from next to my mailbox. The county brings in fill once a year, so I have no idea where it came from. Yeah, and that's a lot of times that's the case. I knew somebody that said the best white clay I ever got was down at this road construction yard in a big pile. Well, you never know what that stuff is at the road construction that they brought in from somewhere. Collect all you can when you can, because it won't be there later probably. All right, everybody. I think that pretty much does it. Is there anything that I didn't cover that we need to hit? Any tips for smoothing out pots? Scrape the outside of the pot while it's still damp real good. And then get a smooth stone, and go over it real good. Do it when it's damp, when it's like leather hard, and then do it when it's getting closer to dryer as well. Not that hard, but I have videos on all that as well. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging around. Catch you next time. Have a good Sunday.